What's going on, everyone? I'm Peter Parkour of the Distorted Theorists, and I'm here today at Sci-Fi on the Rock 2023, Day 3, with a very special guest today. We've got Robert O'Reilly here, who was very kind enough to allow a groveling YouTuber to do a short interview today, and I really appreciate it. Robert, thank you so much for being here, and why don't we start off and you tell me, and you tell everybody else who you are. Why are you here? Why are you so important? I don't know.
Well, I'm not important, but
Don't say that.
I'm here. I did a role called Gowron on Star Trek Next Generation. Started there, went to Deep Space Nine. Did actually 5 roles in Star Trek over about 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And prior to that and after that, I've been on well over 100 television shows.
Oh, wow.
I was always playing primarily the villains.
Okay.
There were a few exceptions to that. Murder, She Wrote. I played a nice person there.
Okay.
But that's pretty much been my career. And
so you're telling me you've dabbled. You dabble a little bit.
I've dabbled a little bit, in the business. But I did a lot of stage work. And oftentimes I would do film and stage at the same time.
Okay.
I was kind of a workaholic back in the day.
It's good. I mean, kept you busy, obviously.
Yeah. And now I've slowed down quite a bit, semi-retired, and I still write a lot, but that's about it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is from what I like. I've seen tons of people. It seems very good. Obviously, that you were I'm assuming a very pivotal role in Next Generation as Gowron, and it's great to see so many people coming up in either in their Klingon get up or not, and just even just then you were chatting with somebody, and I was like, this is big deal for me, and it's great to see that, even because I know this much about Star Trek. I could fill this room with what I know about Star Wars. Star Trek is not my thing, but however, I can still appreciate what the show and the genre and the universe has done for sci-fi. Obviously, there's a reason that it's still going. We're up into how many shows are we at now? We're at there was Enterprise a couple of years ago. There's Deck Below, the new one about Pike.
Yeah, there's all sorts of new ones.
So it's still going for a reason. And I remember the most I do remember about Star Trek is the Next Generation sitting. I was like, I don't know, 5, 6, could have been even younger, sitting in front of the chunk TV. And what got me most about the Next Generation, it wasn't Jean-Luc Picard, it wasn't any Riker, it wasn't any of these 7 of 9 or any of these people. It was the music. That's what I remember of the intro cutscene of the and just seeing the Enterprise. That's all I really remember. Besides Worf and just seeing everyone number 1, number 2. That's all I remember. But I remember it, and that's the very small part that I remember. And you've got mega fans that are coming up to you, including some great cosplayers that we've got here. We've got Admirella cosplay as 7 of 9 here today, and we've had some, like I mentioned, our Klingons that are coming up. You've made an impact, sir. You've done very well with that.
Well, thank you.
So obviously, like I keep talking a lot about Gowron and the Klingon role that you had in the Next Generation and all of Star Trek. But as any other roles beyond that, really ones that have stood out for you? Like, this is obviously what people remember you for, but what do you remember the most? Besides
Gowron was kind of an iconic role, and I did it over a 10-year period, which is very long in TV world. But what I like to do, but it was very heavy in prosthetics.
Yes,
and it was very taxing when you did it. It was you lost 6 to maybe 11 pounds a day.
Just from sweating.
Wow. And the work. You were working 16-hour days, which was difficult if you did it back to back to back, particularly 3 days back to back, because you weren't getting any sleep pretty much. So it was difficult. But my favorite roles were westerns. I did a lot of westerns. The last one I did was a TV show with Willie Nelson, and we had a gunfight together, and that was one of my special times.
Cool, very cool.
And obviously, I lost the gunfight.
That's why you're here.
But I like doing westerns a lot.
Okay, cool.
and I did about 7 of them.
Nice.
And it was just a lot of fun. That was my favorite thing.
Very cool. So the Westerns. I'm actually not from Newfoundland myself. I grew up in Alberta, but I've spent most of my life here.
So there's a lot of Westerns in Alberta.
Yeah, and it was just and going through all that. So of course on TV with the local networks, it would be like the Westerns from the 80s, 70s, and 60s. So all the Ennio Morricone stuff we've got from the music and Clint Eastwood and so many. Well, I mean, there was tons in the 70s and the 60s. It was just Westerns as far as the eye could see. So that's a big thing out in Alberta.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see the allure of a Western for sure. It's very like it's a simple aesthetic as opposed to sci-fi where you're trying to make the lights work and well, is the star chart good in there where it's like clouds are out, let's go.
No, you're trying to get the horses to work,
right?
Which is a lot more difficult. In many ways. They want to go one way, you got to go the other, and they don't like crowds and they don't like cameras,
right?
And you got to go buy camera, and they don't want to go buy the camera. They want to go,
it's something unnatural to them,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So so where you're working difficult things in one genre, it could be more difficult in another genre.
That's true. I never really considered that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned working obviously with the prosthetics as a Klingon. Did you notice, like, what was it like working with those prosthetics? Did it get better over time? Did it become shorter time because you were getting so used to it, or did they become more elaborate so it almost ended up being the same amount of time?
Well, you get used to the prosthetics, and ours were particularly brilliant. It was they weren't hot; they were just, and it was mostly above the eyelids.
Okay.
So it was mostly here. And there was a nose piece that went there, but otherwise this was all free, and that it was pretty good. The heat came from the costume. The costume was extremely hot, and the
polyester,
hair,
Kevlar,
and the hair was hot.
Oh yeah, true too. I never considered that.
As soon as the shot was any kind of a shot was over, the hair went up right away. And the costume came off to cool us down.
Yeah.
And the makeup, was fine. So the way it worked was the makeup was really good. So it was hard on the skin, however, because of the glue.
Oh yeah.
Over time, one day was not bad, 2 days bad, 3 days really bad, and 4 days it was like your skin was coming off.
Well, because I've heard the stories, like the ones that I can pull from are like John Rhys Davies in Lord of the Rings when he was going as Gimli. Like he started to get a reaction so bad that it actually started to affect him mentally. Like there's stories from people on the set that when he was hitting the stunt doubles, he thought he was Gimli because it was just seeping and it was making him ill. And then I've heard stories about Jim Carrey when he was going as the Grinch. Well, the mask was one thing, but when he was doing the Grinch, because he was in the makeup chair for so long, he underwent. I think he said it was like CIA training, like what they use for torture, so they can get to withstand it. So he did a little spurt of that, so he could sit in the chair for so long because it was like 6 to 8 hours a day, being fully green and fuzzy. So I'm assuming you didn't go that far to have to worry about that because, as you mentioned, it was much. I guess it wasn't less, but it was
4.5 hours, on a daily basis. So it wasn't as bad. I did do one role in Star Trek that was 6 hours. In about 5.5. But you sort of zone out. It's actually some actors are able to sleep.
I've heard of that.
I was able to nod a little bit, to doze. But you kind of get used to it.
It's just part of the process. I guess
it's part of the process, and it's not really that bad. It's our call times are very early, 4:18 in the morning.
True,
and I'm sure Carrie's was about that time, and so he wouldn't be ready to shoot until 10. And then he would be treated, with extreme care. He's the star.
You have to be.
I worked with him on Mask.
Oh, okay.
The Mask. And
it's true because he had the mask, so he was working on that too for
sure. That was a bit different because it was really just one thing that went over his, so it's probably not
and
very
teeth,
obtrusive.
those teeth too.
Yeah. And I was never around when he actually did that because it was done. It was a lot of post was done in that.
Oh yeah, okay.
I forget what year it was, but
It's 94.
But
I
I
think
was
when
in
that
the
came out.
cast, so. But that movie really took off. I mean,
Yeah,
it
that was a
huge.
big year for him.
It was a very big year, and he
Yeah.
went from not being known who he was to being, big, almost megastar at that point. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So obviously you've mentioned before that you've been doing this for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you? It's up to you if you really want to name drop or anything. But who have been your favorite screen partners? Who have you shared a screen with that you're like this? This
Well,
was somebody.
Patrick was wonderful.
Yeah,
to
Patrick
work
Stewart
with.
for okay.
Patrick Stewart, who played the captain in Next Gen, and Cisco in Avery Brooke Avery in Deep Space.
Okay.
And Avery was wonderful too. Both of them were totally different actors, obviously, but they were so there, for the other actor, and they were wonderful.
That's great.
And I've worked with so many sort of very big named actors throughout my career. There's so many really, really good actors.
That's fair.
But they particularly were good. And I think it was the role, it was kind of an equal role to them.
Okay.
In terms of the writing.
Oh, yeah.
And they were very generous, but very, very right there with you all the time.
Well, that's great. That's good to hear because it's nice to see how that process works. Because obviously, if everyone's out there for themselves, it can't work. You need to be the unit. So obviously, if the leads of the show in some capacity are there for everybody else, then it kind of makes it feel like a bit more of a family, I guess.
And usually, another actor, but I worked with him as a director, not as an actor, but Jonathan Frakes, who is so much fun, but he directed me. So he was a lot of fun and very, very relaxing atmosphere, which is important on a set.
You don't want that high octane, super intense, because then it kind of bleeds into everything else, and everyone's on edge all the time. So that's nice. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
So with you being in front of the camera, is there a particular method that you prefer, like being in front of the camera, or is it like stage with the silver screen, film, or even being behind? Is it all equal?
Well,
or
I think at the time I was more enamored of stage.
Okay.
Because there's an arc to it every night, and it takes somewhat more preparation.
Oh, for sure.
Because of rehearsals, 5 weeks of rehearsal, normally 3 weeks sometimes.
There's no camera breaks. You just got to be able to
Yeah, and you just do it. But I enjoyed that a lot, and I enjoyed the ability to be so relaxed on a stage. I'm not sure I ever attained that as an actor on film, but that's one of the things one of the goals is try to be very relaxed and doing your job.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that as a stage actor to pretty much perfection in my own world. And I got to that pinnacle of stage acting where I was like that.
Okay.
And so I really enjoyed stage a lot.
Okay, and that's kind of cool to hear because stage, I can't say. Like stage is still an important part. Like it's seen for a while. You don't need to really hear about it a lot, but nowadays, like back in the '90s, it was Cats. Then it was Les Mis, and now the big one is Hamilton, among other ones. And of course, from a Newfoundland perspective, we had come from away. That was the story from September 11th, when everyone got diverted here, and it became a beautiful story that was taken up by Broadway. It just finished its run, actually. So now all the shows are going to be done, I guess, more as like legacy shows and everything. But it's still present, which is nice to see. It's not being forgotten or left to the ages.
Right.
And I mean, you go anywhere, you go to Broadway, you go to London, you go to Toronto, and it's still a huge thing.
Right.
And of course, we've got our smaller productions here with the LSPU Hall and all of our other smaller companies that are great to Spirit of Newfoundland. So it's good to hear that it has remained that process for so long, and it's not being overtaken or
Right.
overshadowed by
Right.
television, film,
Right.
the digital age, streaming, and everything. Like, it's still, people are appreciating the arts for what they are.
Gotcha.
And that's good to hear.
Right.
So, like, when you started, I'm assuming 90s. Were you earlier before that, like in the?
No, I started in the 70s.
Okay, so
and so so that's when I started. Yeah.
Okay, so from the 70s right up until even like some of the last projects that you were working on, you've definitely, you had to have seen a change across technology and everything that we've been using. So are you kind of apprehensive to see where technology can take it? Because it almost took when the digital age came by and everything's, well, we're using green screen, it almost took away, because everyone's like, well, I'm fighting this tennis ball now, as opposed to someone that was a stunt. And now practical effects are making their return almost. So do you think that there's, where you've had such a varied career, do you think
No,
technology?
I understand what you're saying. What's happened is it's never really bothered me, because we make magic anyway.
This is true.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Always was, always will be. Stage even is smoke and mirrors. To a degree.
Literally.
I mean, I did a lot of Ray Bradbury stage work. Martian Chronicles and Fahrenheit 451. So it was smoke and mirrors too. And we tell stories, and that's basically all we do.
That's it. Sure.
And we are the characters who tell a story. That's the broader picture. And so, however, in the medium we're in at the time and history we're in, we're just part of it.
You're just existing within it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're no bigger than our characters. And it started way back prior to Shakespeare.
True.
But, Shakespeare.
Ropes and pulleys, not smoke and mirrors, is ropes and pulleys at that point.
Exactly. And so, it just changes, and it will always change.
Yes.
The only thing I hope is that they always need actors.
True.
And that's about it.
If you're an actor, it's a good business to be in, because they're going to need someone to eventually be in front of some form of media. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's good to hear, really.
Yeah.
If you're not worried about it, then I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah.
So regarding, like, you've obviously, we've mentioned it, I've said it a bunch of times, you've had a varied history, but is there anything on the horizon coming up that you've been involved in that you can talk about? Or you?
No, I'm pretty much retired.
You're done.
I go all over the world doing shows, either for Star Trek or just for like this convention, which is a wonderful convention here.
This is huge. We're so happy to have you here for us.
Huge.
For that.
And it's but a couple of weeks ago I was in Rome. And I was with astrophysicists and space engineers, and it was a convention that they just do every year in Rome.
There's this little place called Rome.
Yeah, and these guys have worked on U.S. space and NASA. They've also worked in the Russian space programs.
Okay.
When needed, and they're original Star Trek fans, and they've been meeting together for 40 years.
Okay.
And I just was there, and I've been in Australia, New Zealand, and so I'm slowing down and just doing that. I write at home, and that's pretty much what I do.
So you're saying that space is next on the horizon? That's the next logical step. You've
Well,
been over the
I'm
world.
not
Now we need to elevate it.
I'm not going, but
You're not going the
I'll let
Roddenberry route.
Shatner do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
For us. Yeah.
I still remember watching that video. It was like, this is seeing Kirk actually get into space and actually have those moments of like, just, you did it for so long and now you're seeing it for real, and he was just shell shocked. It was great to see. So you got to do that. You got to talk to Elon. You got to talk to some of the other.
I'll stay on Earth. I'm very happy.
So I showed you these questions before, and you kind of had an apprehension of this one. And if you don't have an answer for it, I totally understand that. But in the world of geek, you're watching everything that's going around and seeing so many people that are excited for everything geek, sci-fi, and nerdy, for it to coin a term. But is there anything on the horizon, any media that you're excited to see for yourself? Any movies? Any video games, if you're into that? I'm not sure. You could be. I don't know.
No, I mean, if a video game or if one of the ones that use sort of cartoons, I'd certainly be a voice
Yeah.
Don't really want to go back to acting anymore.
No, you're done with
No,
that,
I'm
but you're
done.
okay with the voice acting.
Yeah, yeah. But I would ply into the voice acting. I would
Okay.
enjoy that, and I'm a big fan of voice. Um, Through the years, I've done a lot of voice in the past, but that's about it. And I don't believe they're geeks. I mean,
No.
that's part of, we're all very, very unique. Um, my uniqueness is I'm an actor, but there are other people's whose uniqueness, they may not know what their uniqueness is yet.
Right, they're still trying to figure that out.
They're trying to figure it out, and we're all good. We're all fine.
That's right, and it's a great way of putting it. Honestly, it's you don't need to put a label on it because no one knows what the label is potentially.
Right? Yeah, we're all God's children.
That's right.
It's like, and we're perfect in that way.
Yeah, everyone just needs to be happy and be kind. I think that's the biggest thing that everyone can come from this.
There.
Yeah, you be kind to others. It's going to be returned in some way, shape, or form, and we're seeing so much of that here. There's no animosity. There's nothing nasty about anything here. Everyone
Nobody's different.
And it's some people are. I've talked to people. I was like, well, I bought my cosplay. I'm like, so you're still cosplaying?
It's cool.
You put a pointy ear on. One pointy ear. You're cosplaying as something else. It could be an original character.
It's fun.
And then you see some of these people who have been spending hundreds of hours on these massive costumes that they're these EVA foam. Like you're
all good.
That's not what Robert went through, and you're putting yourself more through it. So it's still part of it. You do what you do. If you're happy, keep doing it. As long as it's not hurting anybody else, you keep doing it. That's
Enjoy
the main
it.
thing.
Go for the enjoyment.
Well, I got to say, Robert, this has been an absolute pleasure. It's been a joy having you here. I'm so happy that you took the time to talk to a semi-relevant YouTuber like myself. It was great to do this.
Okay.
And I'm not just coming for me, but everyone here at Sci-Fi on the Rock. Thanks you for taking the time to come and visit our humble community and whatnot.
And kapla.
See, and you did this earlier, and I was like, kapla too. But this is part of it. I'm so glad that we're doing that. And live long, and I don't know. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again from here at Sci-Fi on the Rock at the Sheraton Hotel, Newfoundland, from the Distorted Theorists and everyone here at Sci-Fi. I want to thank you once again. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, share a comment, do whatever you can. So tell Robert. I mean, it's only going to be going to us, but let everyone know what you thought of the interview here with Robert today. So from myself, Peter Parkour, the Distorted Theorists, as we always say around here, keep it real.